observations and comments, and opinions. So observations also have an orientation, like where, how, what something took place, and then they're followed by an observation, like what I saw, or in academic context, what I read. For example, yesterday I read a paper on the origins of Homo sapiens, like that. Then you provide a comment. If I may continue the observation, I will say the paper has traced back the origins of Homo sapiens to 200,000 years ago, as an example. Now my comment. My comment could be a personal reaction to it, or it could be some kind of counter evidence that I want to synthesize with the observation that I've just provided. I could continue to say, however, I have also read another paper published in whatever journal that claims that Homo sapiens emerged in Africa at least 300,000 years ago. And then I provide more comments on that, and perhaps I review the papers that I have read. And then there's a coda and a conclusion. It's really a very nice way of speaking to young scholars and young scientists who have just embarked on their studies at either graduate or undergraduate levels. Opinions are more or less similar, but the thing is, we start an opinion by giving an opinion. In my opinion, something is like that. In my opinion, for example, some theoretical framework in some field of science like physics or biology is still valid, and we should still continue investigating it. Now that's an opinion. Then it results in a reaction most often. You may react to what you have heard from your interlocutor, or your interlocutor might react in some negative or positive ways. They may express disagreement, they may express excitement, disappointment, uncertainty, or doubt, or other things. So it would be good for teachers to come up with a list of reactions, like those 4 or 5 types of reactions which I just mentioned, and engage students in discussing and practicing them. And of course, when you provide a reaction, you give a reaction to something, then you need evidence. If you say, I disagree with this, then you need to provide evidence. And this is specifically what we do in academic discussions. Even for pre-tertiary level students, I think teachers should think about how to prepare these students for their future, in their future, whether they enter, for example, the market and business, or if they enter academia. I think this genre of reaction evidence, a kind of debate kind of thing, is very important, and they need to be familiar with it and be trained explicitly. Sometimes there is a resolution to those disagreements, disappointments that have been raised in the reaction stage. Therefore, we have a resolution, but sometimes we don't. Actually, in academic context, we may not necessarily come up with a resolution. And finally, there's a gossip sort of genre as well, which has a focus on the third person. It's also interesting to know and dissect the underlying structure of gossips. When you start gossiping, if you listen to yourself, you often start by substantiating behaviors. For example, you talk about someone, you make a claim about someone, or something that they have done, or their behavior, their character, or something. Then there comes some probes, like some further elaborations on that behavior that you're talking about. Then comes a pejorative evaluation. A pejorative evaluation is like when you express disapproval or you express contempt about someone, which is followed by defense. Now, someone else, an interlocutor there, may become defensive, or may say, "No, I'd like to correct you. I think that's not how it works." And then you provide a response to that defense. And this can go on, and both of you may, implicitly agree that, your claims should be, you should concede in your claims. So that's what we call a concession. In other words, you try to make an adjustment to the claims that you have made in response to the defense that another person has suggested. And finally, you wrap it up. That will be the structure of gossip. Well, I'm not encouraging you to engage in gossips as much as I do encourage you to engage in observations and comments and opinions, because gossips are just based on personal conjectures and opinions, and most often they could be wrong. They're based on the theory of mind, which I have discussed in other videos. They're based on our top-down way of analyzing the world around us, which, like I said, can be quite stereotypical and wrong. But by engaging students in observations and making comments and opinions, these two genres, which are actually two of my favorite genres, you engage them in critical thinking and scientific thinking and prepare them for taking responsibilities in their future. By engaging them in gossips, I don't think that they will learn anything really useful. Just my personal opinion. Okay, so let's summarize everything we have talked about so far and talk about their implications for teaching spoken language. First of all, as teachers, we need to consider how language is structured in different social contexts and help students to master those structures. Then we need to identify genres of the language in the syllabus or in the course book, so that if some genre is lacking, we make an attempt to bridge the gap for the students. All of those genres that I have discussed so far should really be discussed and covered extensively in the courses we teach. 3 is give students opportunities to practice the key discourse features of natural spoken language. Not written language, but natural spoken language. It's important to engage them in that. And finally, to introduce students to the idea of concordances. I'll come back to this in another slide, or maybe in the next video that I will make, and I'll explain this in further details. I will show that this is really a very useful idea to engage students in learning some of the microstructures of spoken genres. Now, how do we teach these? Let me just expand on it further. How do we teach these in our language classrooms?